How did Joash go about repairing the temple during his reign? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Chronicles on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 1 to 14. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 2 Chronicles chapter 24, beginning at verse 1. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And Jehoiada took 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Now it happened after this that Joash set his heart on repairing the house of the Lord. Then he gathered the priests and the Levites and said to them, "Go out to the cities of Judah and gather from all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that you do it quickly." However, the Levites did not do it quickly. So the king called Jehoiada the chief priest and said to him, "Why have you not required the Levites to bring in from Judah and from Jerusalem the collection according to the commandment of Moses, the servant of the Lord, and of the assembly of Israel for the tabernacle of witness?" For the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken into the house of God and had also presented all the dedicated things of the house of the Lord to the Baals. Then, at the king's command, they made a chest and set it outside at the gate of the house of the Lord. And they made a proclamation throughout Judah and Jerusalem to bring to the Lord the collection that Moses, the servant of God, had imposed upon Israel in the wilderness. Then all the leaders and all the people rejoiced, brought their contributions, and put them into the chest until all had given. So it was at that time when the chest was brought to the king's official by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, that the king's scribe and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest, and took it and returned it to its place. Thus they did day by day, and gathered money in abundance. The king and Jehoiada gave it to those who did the work of the service of the house of the Lord. And they hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of the Lord, and also those who worked in iron and bronze to restore the house of the Lord. So the workmen labored, and the work was completed by them. They restored the house of God to its original condition and reinforced it. When they had finished, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada. They made from it articles for the house of the Lord, articles for serving and offering, spoons and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of the Lord continually all the days of Jehoiada. The evil reign of Athaliah, daughter of Ahab and husband of Jehoram, over Judah is over. Ahaziah's 7-year-old son, Joash, one who had been secretly protected by Jehosheba, wife of Jehoiada the high priest, was now on the throne. Because he was 7 years old when he became king, though he likely ruled with regents and advisors, with Jehoiada being one of them, until he was old enough to make decisions on his own, he ruled as king over Judah. Looking now at our timeline, we go back up to 839 BC and find the 6-year reign of the usurper Athaliah. That will bring us down to about 833 BC, and following her death, we have the beginning of the reign of Joash. Thus, the beginning of the reign of Joash is contemporary with Jehu in Israel, something that is good to remember. Now, because our timeline is running out of room, we're going to move the timeline up so that we can note that Joash is going to reign for 40 years over Judah. Accounting for this means that Joash's death on our timeline can be brought down to 794 BC. Joash's mother was named Zibiah of Beersheba, showing us that Athaliah was not his mother. Joash, though, would be a break from the 15 years of bad kings, for he would be described in scriptures as one who did right in the sight of the Lord all the years of that Jehoiada lived, something that will become important later on down in the chapter. Despite this, though, Joash's reign would begin a period of good kings in Judah that would largely continue unabated for about 100 years until the reign of Ahaz, his great-great-grandson. Who influenced Joash to do right? It was the high priest, Jehoiada, who likely was a father figure to him, seeing as how he was raised from a baby in Jehoiada's house. To all the fathers out there listening, raise your children to do right, and they will often do right. Sure, it's not a guarantee, but it is an almost certain guarantee that if you don't teach them, they won't do right. For the ways of this world are too alluring to resist without training in righteousness. Jehoiada likely advised Joash as king as one of his chief advisors until Joash became of age to rule on his own, and he even selected Joash 2 wives to marry, showing us his influence during Joash's reign. Now, yes, 2 wives are one more wife than God would have designed, but it's closer to God's design than the kings of Israel in the past, including David. So we're heading in the right direction. In spite of this, God still called Joash righteous. So it was God who chose to overlook this fact due to the hardness of man's heart under the Mosaic age. He doesn't do so today, meaning that we have to follow the teachings for marriage found in the New Testament. As Joash was growing up, he noticed the state of disrepair of the temple of the Lord, which had been caused by the damage inflicted on it by Athaliah. In order to fix it, Joash commanded that some of the money that came to the temple as dedicated gifts from the people be used to repair the house of the Lord. Recall back in our study of Leviticus and Deuteronomy that the priests were to be taken care of from the money and gifts that were dedicated to the Lord. That money was also to be used for the maintenance of the temple so that it could be continue to be used. With the temple needing major repairs, it seems Joash's command would have required more sacrifice on the people's part and on the priest's part. But since this was the temple of the Lord, Joash expected the people and the priests to sacrifice readily and quickly. However, the priests did not collect this money quickly at all, and from our study of from our study of 2 Kings, we know that by the time of Joash's 23rd year, in other words, when he was 30 years old, the work had yet to be completed. Now, why the priests were delaying, the text does not say, but whatever the reason was unacceptable to Joash, for he scolded the priests for their inaction in seeing that these collections were made to repair the temple. As a result, a collection chest was placed in the temple on the right side of the altar of burnt offering where the people could give free will offerings, and it was meant to go towards the fixing of the temple. Joash made a proclamation and sent it throughout Judah with his instructions concerning this collection for the temple. And in due time, all Judah gladly gave in order that the temple be repaired. And so when the chest was full, the high priest and the king's scribe would count the money, but instead of placing it in a treasury, it would be apportioned and given directly to the people who did the work of fixing the house of the Lord. This way, there would be no middlemen who might delay the work, and the people could see directly what their money was being spent on and that it was being spent properly. During this process, though, none of the money collected was used for the purchasing of the new sacred items for the house of the Lord. That would come after the work was finished, but rest assured, all of those items were purchased and made so that the house of the Lord was restored to its former glory. In all things, God was glorified, and his temple was fixed up to the standards that it should have been before being defiled through idolatry. If the chronicler had ended there and just told us that Joash died of a good old age, we could firmly say that Joash's entire reign was right before God. But sadly, that would not be the case, as we will find out, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 15 to 27. As we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.